Citizens, this is the court of public opinion. And in the first part of the court of public opinion, I will be discussing the decision by the Honorable Justice James WAKIAGA when he was in Nyeri Law Court. This discussion is to the extent of the decision he made in the High Court Miscellaneous Application number 57 of 2013. In this part 1 of the videos of the undecision, I want to highlight the circumstances that led to the crime, which was the subject of the High Court Miscellaneous Application number 57 of 2013. In 2013, I decided to fence the common boundary between my mother's land and the land being used by her brother-in-law, Mr. Ikuju Waigwa. Now, the land in question then was on the record owned by Waigwa wa Mutungu, my grandfather. Waigwa wa Mutungu had 2 sons living on that land. One of the sons was Mr. Peter KARURU Waigwa, my father. His other son was Mr. Gikunju Waigwa. The boundary in question was set by Mr. Gikunju Waigwa in 1973. Mr. Gikunju Waigwa set that boundary unilaterally. He did not invite anybody outside his immediate family to come agree on that boundary. He made a decision and he set the boundary. Now, in the course of time and with the nature of farming and hedges and so on, the boundary was no longer clear. Now, my mother had been complaining that people had been walking over from Mr. Gikuju Waigwa's part of the land and stealing her bananas, her other crops, firewood, fencing posts, and picking items from the homestead as theft. She had complained for some time. So I thought that if I was to put a fence there, it would send a symbolic message to whoever was stealing her items that if you cross over here, now you are in somebody else's domain. So that was my thinking. So I saw my father and I shared my thinking on the fence with him. And he told me, my son, go talk to my brother, Mr. Gikunju Waigwa. What you agree on, you do that. So, I decided to write a letter to Mr. Ikuju Waigwa. And I wrote the letter. And I copied the same letter to the area chief, the area assistant chief, and the village chairman. And actually, I sent all the letters through the village chairman. I later saw Mr. Ikujuwaigwa, my father's brother, and we discussed this fence, and he agreed that it's okay, we fence. And we agreed that I get people, we retrace and mark the boundary. Once we are through retracing it and marking it, we call him so that he can come and see the fidelity of the boundary. And I was happy with that. I recruited 2 people. One of the persons was Peter Wahome KARURU. The second person was John Kariuki Macharia. John Kariuki Macharia happens to be the village chairman at Afundi. So I thought, rather than have to call a remote witness to what you are doing, let me use the village chairman. I recognize authority on some of these issues. So that made 3 people, citizens, the public. 3 of us, Mr. Peter Wahome KARURU and Mr. John Kariuki Macharia and myself, we started working on Monday, the 29th of April 2013, to mark, to retrace and mark the boundary. We worked on Monday, the 29th of April 2013, and on Tuesday, the 30th of April 2013, the whole day. And we did a good job because the boundary, we traced it and it had perfect fidelity to the boundary set by Mr. Ikujuwaigwa in 1973. On Tuesday, the 30th of April, I called Mr. Ikujuwaigwa and informed him that we were now through with the retracing and marking the boundary, and could he come at his convenience to check if it was right. And he said yes, he would be coming. That evening at approximately 4 o'clock, two of his sons turned up at my mother's part of the farm and proceeded to pull out the pegs and the other markers for the boundary that he had been setting for 2 days. The 2 people who did this were Mr. Peterson Githai Gikuju, a policeman then serving under the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. The second person was Geoffrey Waigwa Gikuju. I sued them. My mother sued them. There were other witnesses who sued them, pulling out the pegs, the stakes, the markers, the whole algorithm meant to retrace and mark the boundary. When I saw them pulling out the pegs, they were on one part of the land in question. I did go and witness those people pulling out the pegs, despite my protestations. And to me, that amounted to robbery. And it happened that Peterson Gidai Kuju was armed with a gun. A number of those pegs and stakes and markers of the boundary were removed and taken away in my presence, and despite my protestations. Now, these were circumstances that were ripe for a breach of peace. But my education, my socialization does not allow me to confront people physically. And then I'm also not stupid, because here you have two people who have the audacity to come and damage, rob property. Now, it happens that Mr. Peterson Gidai Kuju was not living on that land. The same with Mr. Geoffrey Waiwa Kuju. He was not living on that land. So really, they have come to damage and steal property to no purpose except just an excess of evil. They are doing that because they can. Because Peterson Gidai Ikuju is a policeman, he's armed with a gun, and I am convinced that his wife, also a police person, was also armed. Because I would have expected, by her status as a person married into the home of Mr. Ikuju Waiwa, that she would stand back and allow the men to sort out the issues. But she chose to stand outside her family car with her handbag, and I assumed that she must have been armed and was providing cover to the husband just in case the incident turned violent. Other suspect crimes occurred on the site. When the damage was over, I called the village chairman and briefed him on what had happened. He advised me to call the assistant chief. The assistant chief advised me to call the chief. The chief advised me to report the incident to the officer, the OCS. I visited the OCS's office in Nyeri, and I managed to brief the deputy OCS, and we agreed that I report the incident to the Akanja police post. Now, the same day I reported to the Deputy OCS, I put the whole matter in writing and sent a report on the same through registered post to the OCS. So the OCS now had a write-up on the incident, and the Deputy OCS had been informed. I reported the matter to the Akanja police post, and I wrote a statement on the scene. The matter was entered in the occurrence book, and it was given an occurrence book number, what you call the OB number. The people at Akanja advised me far much later to take the witnesses to the Akanja police post to record their statements. And I sent the witnesses there. The police wrote some of the statements and declined to write some. And then I waited. And I waited. Then I found that it was pointless to wait beyond a certain point. Now, citizens, I am a patient person, but I also understand that there is a gray zone between being patient and being stupid. When I find myself in that gray zone between being patient and being stupid, I stop being patient. As per the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, the National Police Service has no obligation to institute proceedings against suspects.